This is Power Athlete Radio. With your hosts, Denny K, Professor Booty, and the Luke Summers. And now, toes forward, hips locked, shoulders set, and retract those scapulars. It's time for some knowledge bombs.
What's up, Power Athlete Nation? This is Denny, once again, gathering the collective minds for the greatest podcast in history. I got Luke Summers here.
What's going on, guys?
What's up? Come on, fellas.
You know, that's an official ranking. It's if we were just talking before the show. I think it's the same. The folks who rank us as the best podcast in the galaxy, I believe, is the title. Also rank us as the best-looking seminar staff. So
just under JD Power and Associates.
That's right.
That's that's a good topic that you bring up. You know, we're getting great submissions for the Power Athlete Radio material. Write some comments on iTunes for all you iTunes followers. Let us know how we're doing. Give us some positive feedback. We get a lot coming in through Power Athlete headquarters, but let's get some more chatter on on iTunes as well, because that's how we roll.
Yeah, and you know what they say: if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say it at all.
So you think that's what's happening?
No.
I mean, come on, we got.
Hey, listen, if you want me to bring back the sledgehammer,
yeah,
or the jackhammers.
Every podcast needs a little jackhammer.
I mean, we got it all on this podcast.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens when you run a lean organization. You have to be versatile. You have to be able to record a show even when your kids are crying or when someone's tearing up your gym floor. Like, you just got to make it happen, and that's our specialty. Make it happen.
Well, so Luke, last week, John and Ben, they went and did the UK seminar. Did you hear any interesting comments on that trip from those guys?
They had an awesome crew. The biggest thing when you go to these, or when we put on these seminars again, is the attendee experience. So John carries a lot of star power, and a lot of the feedback we've been getting, because we request feedback at every one of these seminars, is you see a big guy like Wellborn walk through the door, and if you have any experience playing high-level sports, you don't really equate intelligence with that stature. So he blew everybody's minds. We answer every question. We go down every rat hole, and people had a blast. I know a buddy of mine from New Zealand is he's going to go to the one in Germany. So he traveled to the UK to check out this seminar, and he said his mind was so blown, he thinks he missed some stuff. He's going to Germany.
I really, it benefited me big time seeing two seminars, and that's just the beginning. I mean, shit, if I could follow you guys around, we're talking Grateful Dead, Deadhead kind of stuff, man. I mean, maybe I'll just quit my job and do that.
It really is. I mean, that's what I did. And after like my 8th or 9th seminar, like all the pieces finally connected. And I'm delivering the material too, studying it, listening to film or our audio recordings. And it took a long time to connect all the dots, but once you understand the ecosystem, the method, and how it's all tied together in whole, like it's really eye-opening. It's if this is your profession and this is your passion, it's life-changing. It really is. And John and I have been talking quite a bit about this program or that program, because people ask us about it, and we just fielded a couple questions for Wad Talk magazine, and they might do a little article on us. But what it all came down to is, like, in your travels and in your experience, what's the most common mistake you see in the strength and conditioning world? And it's ego. If you understand that you are not bigger than the principles, there's tried and true principles. There's people who spent their lives researching this stuff. If you appreciate the fact that you are not bigger than those principles and you know how to apply them, then you are going to be light years beyond most of the coaches out there. So people, John did apparently a great job of identifying they weren't getting the message across. And sometimes it's a cultural thing. We have a certain sense of humor and a certain way of delivery. When you go to Europe, it doesn't mesh well. It's not to say that we were offensive or anything like that. It's just the way that we can communicate here, it wasn't effective there. So he spent the last hour or so tying up the knots for everybody. And he said after the cert, people were coming up like, in proverbial tears, like, oh, I get it now. I finally get it. And it's hard to explain without really attending one of these things, but there is so much knowledge, and some things appear to contradict others, but it's about context. It's not about application, and it's different, and you have to understand that. So that's one of the biggest things that was different about this UK deal is, there was people from Denmark, there's people from Italy, there's people from all over that we just kind of had to step back and go, you guys clearly cannot see the forest through the trees, or John and Ben had to, and they tied it all up for him.
That's really cool. Can you guys hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Clear. Yeah.
Steve, you lived over there for a while, right? I mean, can you identify with that? The way the culture's, the difference in the culture?
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Liverpool, which is kind of like the Detroit of the UK. No offense to you Detroit followers. I mean, there's definitely a different culture over there, and they like to do the things they like to do just like us. They don't want to just bow down to it, but I think they're also a little bit more open-minded in some respects. So that was my experience, at least with some things. But I didn't train real hard over there. When I was over there, I was working hard, and I'd injured my back twice. In fact, the reason I found CrossFit was because I was in England. I injured my back, and somebody recommended it because it had lots of bodyweight exercises in it. And then I found CrossFit football, and then the rest is kind of history after that. But that was after I moved back to the States.
Nice. So, Luke, Nebraska's next, right? Omaha, Nebraska. We got Luke.
Sorry guys, I was on mute because there's a tile saw right outside my window. Yeah, dude, it's like, I might as well live in the construction capital of the world.
Yeah.
If it's not an airplane, it's a tile saw. So apologies again on any background noise to our listeners, but we're going to Omaha, Nebraska, and it's me and Tex. We've been scheming this whole week on how we're gonna blow this one out of the water, and that's all we really focus on the week leading up. I mean, we each have our coaching gigs, our home lives, but there's a series of preparation things to do to prepare for the seminar coming up. So we're excited, man.
I'd be Nebraska. I think of Nebraska. I think of the Cornhuskers. Big offensive line, right? Line up, run the ball, smash people.
Yeah,
that's kind of the Wisconsin Badgers. I mean, that's I like Big Ten football. Have you ever heard of the Nebraska method of strength and conditioning? Kind of like a tagline of, I think it was in the 90s.
Yeah, are you talking about like the Nebraska circuit training?
Yeah. When they introduced metabolic conditioning, like in the early 90s, they were like just crushing people. I think they called it like the survivor circuit or something. I just got like little bits and pieces, but
yeah. So it's like I think it's like 9 stations, and what it's all about. It's classic like CrossFit-esque type stuff. You start with legs, you rotate legs, back, arms, and you start with your compound joints, and you end with your with kind of like isolated lifts. And I believe it's like 60 seconds. You have 60 seconds to complete a set of 10 reps. and then you do 3 sets of 10, or you work up to 3 sets of 10, and you start with like squats, then you'll do bench, then you'll do like pull-ups or lat pull down, and then you'll do another compound lift for your legs. So it's like you got 3 sets of legs, 3 sets of back, and 3 sets of arms. But we've had a couple people follow it. I know John's applied it in some of our private programming, and I think there's a disclaimer, like, you need to be super experienced, and this training protocol will exceed your psychological threshold of pain. So like, it's a certain type of individual that really needs to go through this. But when you get to that high level of football, like, all those guys are crazy, and that's not an insult, but you have to have some loose wires, and you have to have some wires disconnected if you're going to go through that level of beating week in and week out,
Yeah, you gotta want something if you're gonna do that to your body.
Yeah. So, and I think it was I want to say it was like a 4, 5, or 6 week circuit, and that's all they said. They said within a year you only need 4 to 6 weeks of this, and this style of training shouldn't be a year-round thing, because it doesn't work, and that's what John and I have been talking about for the past maybe 2 weeks, and he's been traveling, I've been traveling. We haven't had a chance to like sit down and round table, but it's super something that's, I don't know, super enlightening, I guess, but again, hidden in plain view, is like everything works, but it doesn't always work forever. And it's all about finding what's optimal for what period of time. And this kind of all goes back to exactly what's coming up with, or the question that was raised on the football comments about, we did some research and we saw 20 weeks, and then we're getting feedback from individuals about 9 months and continuing to progress. And it's like, well, which one's going to be more optimal? What's the correct amount of time for the amateur progression and the amateur window? And we kind of got to take a step back and do a little research.
You think the window's widening?
It's all about, again, everything works, and we don't know the best way to determine what is optimal. When you move on to the collegiate template and you start working in the RM matrix, you should be trying to add as much weight as you can over your previous attempt. Mm-hmm. So the progression doesn't stop. It just stops being linear.
Right.
And you know what? Some days you can't lift that much. And if you look at it, it's a means to the RM and a lot of the drop set stuff that we do. It's a way to balance volume and intensity. And that's exactly what resetting is. If you keep adding weight, you're adding intensity, but then you reduce your intensity and it becomes volume. It's like we're gonna go through the Rolodex, open up the textbooks, and try to put a more definitive timeline on this, or rather than a timeline, because we don't like, there has to be a set of landmarks. Like, there has to be an indication or a set of variables that pop and tell you when linear progression is no longer optimal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but everybody's different, right? Every central nervous system is different. I hear you talk about like programming for 20,000 plus. Here's what works, but that's a huge task.
Well, there's lots of variation around that mean, right? So I mean, there might be 2,000 people in that 20,000. That 20 weeks is perfect. There's probably a ton that maybe 21 weeks is perfect, or 19 weeks is perfect, or 30 weeks, or 9 months, or whatever. So yeah, that's a hard one to nail.
There's people, Steve, there's still people on the comments who've been on amateur for, one guy's like, I've been on it for 3 years. I still make gains.
Denny, you're preaching to the choir. When I came back after hurting my shoulder, I was like, I think I'm just going to jump on amateur for a little while. And John bitch slapped me and was like, Flag, you can't go on amateur, dude. Like, you need to go right to collegiate. And I was like, oh, shit. Okay, whatever you say, John.
Yeah. I mean,
there are people who've been on amateur progression. I mean, when we talk about milking it for years. But I mean, it's a good powerlifting template.
It is.
I mean,
and if you
benching, pressing, and squatting, I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's your athleticism or that's your skill. I mean, that's what you do, right?
Yeah, but the yes. And especially if you're testing for fives. But what you're ultimately going to do is you're going to adapt to those fives. And there is, I mean, you read the West Side Book of Methods, you read Science and Practices, you read any of these texts, and they talk about variation in training. So, it's. I think we're trying to boil the ocean, and that's what I got to talk to John about too. Is like,
boil the ocean.
There's got to be a set of global indicators that can vary by skill level, and I don't know if that's. And again, if there is a period, we're not talking about. Unfortunately, like you guys said, there's 20,000 followers here, and we're trying to program for them, and it's not going to be a slam dunk every time. I was watching a Football Life on Barry Sanders is on NFL Network.
I've seen that one.
Yeah, dude. And he said, one of the things he said is like, people regard me as one of the best running backs of all time, but not every run was for positive yardage. So, as long as we are consistently over a long enough timeline putting weight on your numbers and you are getting stronger and better, if there's a 6 to 10 week window where you may have hopped off the amateur progression too soon or too late and it's not optimal, but we get you back up to optimal on a long enough timeline, that's what John and I have to, and the rest of our crew, Callie and Tex, we're going to have a roundtable on it. John's going to pull out the Rolodex, like I said, and we're going to try and nail this down. And where the 20 weeks came from was we were going through Mel Siff super training, and he starts talking about for an untrained athlete. Now here's the key: an untrained athlete, the phases of adaptation that take place and the approximate timelines associated with it. And at the end of the day, 20 weeks, there becomes a split in the limiting factor at the end of 20 weeks for an untrained athlete, where either the central nervous system needs more adaptation, or this athlete needs to undergo additional hypertrophy to actually generate more force. It's one of those two. They no longer are able to be trained in tandem. So that's where we cut that timeline, and we're like, oh, then you just balance volume intensity, which is a lot of what the collegiate template's about. Now, that, it just also depends on where you start, so to speak, too. You know what I mean? So there could be, Mel Siff said something like 6 to 9 weeks of hypertrophy. The athlete will undergo 6 to 9 weeks of hypertrophy. But we're seeing that smashed on the comments. We're seeing it smashed. No one really, a lot of people who submitted their information for the beginner's guide, and this is one of the reasons we wanted to collect this information, and we were hoping for some more detailed numbers, but a lot of people were just like, oh, it was great, I'm totally jacked, I kick ass, like I was looking more for like, oh, my squat went from 160 pounds to 314 pounds in my 3x5s over a period of 60 weeks. Well, okay, maybe we could have got you there if you jumped onto the collegiate template in 40 weeks. Right.
Hey, listen, everyone doesn't keep a journal like I do.
Yeah, they don't. But those people are out there. And they've been to the cert, and I've seen their mad science binders, and I know Dreadlock's one of them. I saw him in the Northeast, and I think a guy named Ben, I saw him in St. Charles, and these guys had like every detail written down. I'm like, this is what our boy Booty does, But so I guess rather than just kind of barf this whole thing out, I'll put a little structure to it. We got to sit down. We got to look at the information that's in front of us. We got to vet it out, and then, unfortunately, at our gym we don't have a large abundance of untrained athletes. So if we just got to find some people who, what, lifting weights? Yeah, I do that. I've been using the cable pull down. Okay, well, let's put them on linear progression. Let's see how long it lasts. So, but we don't have those folks to retest it. Now we've tested it before. I remember I had my workout notes from when me and my training partner back in Illinois started the program and how long we stayed on it, and it was long. But I ended up resetting my bench press maybe 15 times. Well, I didn't get much better, but my squat and power clean were going up. So again, what's the overall goal? Is it just to build and establish a base level of strength in all your lifts? Maybe it is to draw it out, but I don't know. I was texting John. We have like a text string of like 80 messages about it. He was in Phoenix the other day with his family on a little excursion to see Dr. Tom and work on some supplementation stuff. But again, we're between that, Viber, because he was in the UK, like we've just been going back and forth on this thing, and we'll have an answer, and you'll see it in volume 2 of the training manual. There's a couple good questions that have popped up that are going to be added there as well. So.
You realize you just committed to writing volume 2, right?
What's that?
You realize you just committed on air to writing volume 2.
Well, I thought by releasing something called volume 1, it's implied there is going to be additional volumes.
Oh, heck no.
Really?
No.
All right, then.
Not in science writing anyway.
Comment withdrawn.
Hey, you have complete editorial control anyhow. So.
That's true.
So there you go. That's what happens. You guys talk about.
Okay, go ahead, Denny.
I was just gonna say that's when I hear you guys talk about like taking over the world. There's like little like nuggets there from what that means, what that implies.
Sure. Yeah. Well, taking over the world just is about critical mass. So how do we take it to that next level? How do we get into untapped markets? How do we get people to understand sports isn't about putting up numbers in the weight room. We run it through it time and time again. Oh no, my guy's got to hit 315 before they can start. What does benching 315 have to do with playing football? Now, there is a connection. There is a tangible connection, but there's all sorts of really good athletes who are amazing football players who may not be able to bench 315. And that goes for any sport. So that's what the take over the world is, where people understand the method is about performance on field and not necessarily performance in the weight room. And while they are strongly correlated, there has to be an appreciation for the fact that how you apply your training in the weight room can improve on-field performance, and it doesn't always have to be about the numbers.
Absolutely.
So how do we get that message out? We trick a couple guys who follow the program into running a podcast for us. Let's see, what else do we do? We brainwash a brilliant designer in the UK and get him to help us out so we can get some quality material put together. But no, it's all about finding people like yourselves who've had great experiences with it and really spreading the word. And that's the strategy. That's a strategy, is just build an army and spread the word.
Nice.
That's awesome. Steve, what were you going to say before?
I completely forget. It was something about that amateur program. I'm so sick of hearing about the amateur program, though, so I'm not going to ask it.
It's still like pretty much like one of the hottest topics on the.
I guess. All right. So I guess
every single day somebody's asking a question about, should I switch, and
yeah,
should I don't want to secret squirrel it. How do I do this? And then it's like, no, I have to have blind devotion to this specific program. The greatest program that I've ever come across. I think that's what I fell in love with CrossFit football.
Yeah. Back
in 2009 was just, I kind of felt like, man, this is what I've been waiting for, But after hearing like Luke and John and Callie and Tex all on this podcast talking about how you can, if you have to bring up, a lagging body part or whatever because you're struggling with a said lift, do it. It's okay to do it. But still, there's, people who just, I don't know, what are they searching for, Luke? What do they need? Do they need you to drive over and knock on their door and be like, dude, it's okay?
I think I figured it out. All right, here's the answer. As long as you think it's working, then do it. How's that? The last
Great answer.
But here's the critical thing here, Luke. They have to be thinking, right?
Right.
I think some of the comments you're talking about, Denny, people come on like new, fly out of the gates like, oh my God, I don't know which one should I go, blah, blah, whatever. And it's like, dude, calm down, think about it, right? Like if your lower back is the weak point, the weak link in your armor, then do some work on that, right? I mean, no one is going to throw you off the blog site if you do a few extra banded good mornings or some back extensions or something. I mean, like, I can't speak for that because I don't run the blog, but I don't think anyone's going to ban you from the blog. It's a weird, like, inability to sometimes think outside the box or think for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. But that's why this whole CrossFit training deal, whether or not you own a gym or you're a specialty cert or CrossFit HQ, is so popular. And yeah. But it and not that there's nothing wrong with that. Because people are busy enough, and there's probably the busiest people in the world that follow some of this stuff, and they're like, I literally am mind numbed by my 70-hour-a-week job. I just want you to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And and I don't want to say I don't want to green light that, because if you've been doing this long enough, you should, and this is something you're passionate about, I absolutely urge you to pick up a book, pick up Super Training and take a year and a half to read it a couple times. It's your new Bible, and just try it and see what works for you, and whether or not it works isn't always physiological. It's also psychological. So we got a guy at our gym. He's a chiro guy. He helps us out quite a bit with some of the nuts and bolts around this stuff. But he's on the amateur progression, and he's like, oh well, I'm just gonna ride it out till I hit 340 pounds for 3 sets of 5. If you're happy doing that, then do it. Will it get you there? Yes. You will get there eventually. You keep applying the stress, your body will continue to adapt. Could it potentially adapt quicker on the collegiate program? Yes. But who cares? I mean, I guess if there is no time crunch, then do the amateur progression. But where you have to be conscious and cognizant of this is if you have an athlete who has a compressed timetable, where okay, you're not a 30-year-old chiropractor. You're an 18-year-old kid, and you need to be at the top of your game as soon as you can be. If you're a 20-year-old kid and the NFL's right around the corner, well, you need to be doing whatever's optimal, because that window, even if it is a decade, is really compressed when you have half the year in season. So your off-season training has to be dialed. It has to be efficient. It has to be optimal. And so there's really two, you can see how the application could be different based off of the specific adaptation that has to be imposed.
Yeah. Right. Hey, I'm 16 years old. I got 6 weeks till, football starts. Get me to, X level. Go.
Right. And whatever works the fastest, which linear progression is the most accelerated approach to putting on body weight, to getting stronger, to getting more powerful. So it works the quickest. You see a plateau once you reach your base level of strength. And that's where the collegiate template we feel is optimal, but how long it takes you to get there depends on all sorts of stuff. So, and those are the things we have to take into account. And we have, like I said, when we do a roundtable, there's gonna be a lot of variables thrown out there that we're gonna have to account for. But it's interesting stuff, and this is where it's like it never gets old, never gets boring. And I'm not trying to cast stones, but I can't I can't count on two hands the number of times we've revisited our claims and tried to, like, whether or not they've been proved wrong. We've made an adjustment, but like we're always willing to bend, and whatever works the best, that's what we're wed to. We're performance whores, like I'm not, I don't look for a specific, I'm not wed to a specific method or lift. Whatever works the best, we're going to go with. And that's really what's pretty unique about the program as well.
And that's awesome. And that's true to sort of scientific nature, right? You don't just stick with something because you created it. You modify it and mold it into what works. It sounds to me like you guys have an insurmountable or maybe surmountable with your team, but you're at the interface of what I would consider group programming, and I mean at 20,000, that's a hell of a group, and then the individual piece, right?
Right.
I mean, it's hard to say what kinds of variables will come up in your little round meeting, but I bet you one of them will be things like recovery and diet. I mean, I think about my personal existence, right? 2-year-old, relatively good diet. I think I have a full-time job. Other people might disagree. And then I train, right? And so, I teach, I do research and all that stuff. So but I don't have that, 9 to 6 grind with a 2-hour commute with 4 kids at home, et cetera, that I don't live under an airport, right? So these are all factors that are going to impact, probably, I would think, how these things work. I think lots of the books are awesome and they give us a foundation, but lots of that data was formulated on like Russian superstars, right?
Absolutely.
So you got to keep that stuff in mind too. I can't speak for anybody else on the blog, but I am not a Russian Olympic weightlifter, and I'm Polish, and but I mean that's a huge task to undertake. I mean, it's getting to the point where like people are going to start saying, okay, well, this is what I eat, this is how many calories I have, this is my stress level, and it comes back to a conversation that I hope we can get John back on to have again. Is probably ultimately I think it's going to barrel down to something like this wellness RX type of. I think I don't know if it's called that or Genix or something, whatever it's called, this biomarker analysis type of thing. I recently went to the doctors and my doctor is kind of, I guess, new age or something, but I'm approaching 40 and he just runs like a full biomarker scan on me and gives me great feedback. And I know what to do with that feedback. And turns out what I'm doing is working. Cholesterol's good. Testosterone's good. All the subsequent analyses of inflammatory markers and all that stuff. Like, I'll probably walk out of my office and die, right? But all of the on paper indicators of health and fitness and what have you look good. So like that's going to also, I think, play a role. If you come to the table with a biomarker analysis that's loaded with inflammatory proteins and cholesterol's horrible and testosterone's low, your adaptation or response to any training program is going to be fundamentally different, or at least the trajectory, I would think, correct me if I'm wrong, Luke, is going to be different than the person who comes to the table with a biomarker analysis that's like 100% spot on. I think those two individuals are going to vary with respect to their response to training adaptation.
You're absolutely right, because those are the components of recovery, and recovery is required to drive adaptation. So right. You're 100% on. It's just could you imagine that task? Like, could you imagine going to a website where you have to plug in all your freaking all your blood work and it tells you exactly what program to go on for exactly how long? Hey Denny, that's world domination right there.
Dude, that just sounds cool.
I can't imagine that website.
That website would rock.
Only in my imagination that it exists.
Yeah, but I mean, should we barrel forward? How long have we been on the air?
I don't know. We've been jabbering on here a bit.
Yeah, we got about 10 minutes. We've been on for 40 minutes.
We've probably just bored the hell out of people.
Right.
But I guess what we're we even talking about? Amateur. Oh, yeah, we'll figure it out. How was that?
There we go.
Yeah, it all makes sense. We trust you guys.
Perfect.
All right, so let's go into the questions submitted to us. EJ Watson, he says, good afternoon. First, let me tell you how much I appreciate the Power Athlete radio series. That's right.
It's
I can't tell you
it's
how
nice
much
to be appreciated, you know? It just feels really nice to be appreciated every once in a while.
It does. I mean, give me my my pink fuzzy warm blanket and I'll be cool. Whatever, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
Denny,
Just move
you and I
on.
need to hang out sometime, dude.
Yeah.
You're a funny bloke.
I can't tell you how much more entertaining my ride to work is. I'm looking for some advice, and I'm hoping you can point me in the right direction. I'm 30, 197 pounds, 20% body fat, no serious history of injuries. I started lifting my junior year of college, played rugby and boxed. Cool. I continued to play rugby after college and became more proficient at my lifts. Here I am now with 2 kids, and I've sort of hit an impasse. I'm looking to increase my level of fitness. I'm reading both K-Star and BMAC's new books, and I may have information overload. If I were to ask what I'm training for, I guess I would want to get back into shape for rugby. I want to increase my lifts, cut my times, and jump my lung. I know there is no secret squirrel, but what should I do? Follow CrossFit football, CrossFit endurance, main site. Is there some odd combo there that I can help? Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work, EJ. So, he wants to get bigger, faster, and stronger.
I got.
What does he do?
I don't.
What's a boy to do?
All right, so he absolutely has information overload. It's my suggestion, if you're trying to do all those things, increase endurance and oxidative capacity, increase work capacity, aka fitness level, increase strength, increase power. Like, it all doesn't happen at once. Strength and power are the foundation of any sort of athleticism. So if you think of it like a house, you don't build the roof first. You lay a foundation, right? And you build the framework on top of that. Okay. At the very base of this thing, there is a required level of GPP. Now, you only need to be in good enough shape to survive the programming. Let's say strength and power are your first training adaptation that you're looking for. Then follow CrossFit football. Period.
Absolutely.
That you will get stronger, bigger, faster, and more powerful. Now, in terms of work capacity, if you're looking for the appropriate amount of work capacity to be in quote unquote rugby shape, then join a rugby league. After, 8 months of training, or maybe a year, because if you follow football, CrossFit football for a year, you're going to get pretty big. Relative to your size, you're going to get strong, you're going to get powerful. If you treat the sprints like it's life or death, you will get faster. Now, if you want to get, and we'll get you in a pretty good shape too, in terms of work capacity, but you're not going to win the CrossFit Games. Will you be prepared to jump on into a rugby training camp? Absolutely. After you finish your rugby training camp, you're going to be in rugby shape. That's all, that would be my approach. Now, there is no, it's funny how he's like, there's no secret squirrel, but what's the secret combo? Consistency in training is one of the best tools to drive or to achieve your goals. And you have to be patient. And Google ruined it for everybody. I love it. I'm bound to it. If I could marry Google, I probably would. But they give you what you need and what you want in fractions of a second. I literally, in 0.25 seconds, I can get 1 billion results, right? Now, if you're looking to get bigger and stronger, now let's say he wants to put on 20 pounds lean muscle mass. That might take 8 months. That might take 14 months. So think about how much bigger you want to be. If you want to get stronger, I don't know what your baseline is now, but let's say you want to put 150 pounds on your squat and 70 pounds on your bench press. Okay, well, if you follow the amateur progression, assuming you don't reset, it's going to take you 15 weeks to put 150 pounds on your squat, right? And then 70 pounds, what's that? Divide that by 5. Nobody knows. 14 weeks, right? So that's how long it's going to take you, assuming you don't reset. Now, let's say you throw and you don't want to jump off amateur progression. Let's say you throw in 3 or 4 resets, then you're going to add another 9 to 12 weeks onto that. So it's possible it can get you there, but it's consistency in training. And EJ's lucky enough to have a resource out there that programs consistently and has done so for the past 4 years now. And that's CrossFit football, and it sounds like we're geared towards his ultimate training goals. I would just be realistic with some training goals and be that are quantifiable and throw them out there and put a stake in the ground and move forward.
I think you raised a really good point there, which is consistency. And what I was going to say, and then you said it immediately as I was going to say it, was patience. Everybody, I don't know, I guess maybe because I'm older and I realize like I'm not going to win the CrossFit Games. I know, guys, I said it here first, okay? But patience is really something that's important in weight training. Like you get these programs that are based on percentages or what have you, and people want to just quick rush up and like go for their 1RM after 2 weeks of doing a 14-week program, or, it's just stick to the program and be patient because it works.
Yeah.
Stick to the program. It works. Everything's all good.
Heck yeah.
It doesn't sound good on Denny's end. It sounds like there's a bunch of crying babies.
Tell me about it, right? Tell me about it.
No, I'm just messing.
This is life. Real life. Right now.
There's life happening right there. You testing your GPP?
Definitely. This is what I train for.
That's right, man. And kids will tax your GPP. You know what my kid did today? Well, I shouldn't tell you on air. It's crazy. He did a belly flop from the top of my bed, king bed. It's about 3 feet off the ground. Belly flop onto the carpet.
Oh,
straight
yeah.
baller. Yeah. And he looked at me like, why did that hurt? It's because hardwood floor underneath.
Yeah. That's one of the best ways to increase trunk strength is just belly flop onto the ground.
Hey, if that gets programmed on CFFB, we have to have video submission required.
Man.
So I don't know. Do you guys have anything to add for that question?
No, I mean, I think the K-Star book is great for like injury prevention and general mobility and stuff. I don't know anything about BMAC's book. I agree with you though. I mean, if he's going to play rugby, I mean, it seems like there's nowhere else to come but CrossFit football. I mean, unless he goes and gets a personal coach, right, who's going to, identify every weakness he has and hammer it away and get on the field. But it's like we've said time and time again, CrossFit football isn't going to get you ready to play your sport necessarily. It's going to get you in shape to be ready to get in shape to play your sport, right? You learn to play your sport on the field of your sport, and you get conditioned to play your sport on the field of your sport. This sets up, like you said, like the foundation. So, I mean, it almost seems like, I don't know, it seems to me like maybe he wrote in sort of knowing the answer, but just wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
It's been reaffirmed.
It's been affirmed.
So, what else, guys?
Well, one of the things you might toss out to EJ is, look, if you're going to start doing CrossFit football, he could be one of your initial data points, right? Send some info, send some stats, and then get on the program. And, even if it's just like something like compare your rugby performance back in your college days to now, your squat numbers, that sort of thing. I mean, he's like he hasn't made a decision yet. So good baseline data point.
Sure, and I guess that goes for any of you guys who have like a spreadsheet out there and want to share it or are willing to share it. We'd be more than willing to take a look at it, and it'd be interesting stuff to kind of gaze over, and as much info as you'd be willing to share, but it'd be interesting.
You could probably keep the humidity to yourself.
Well, so the thing about EJ too is like he's not untrained,
right?
So it's where there's probably been a severe amount of detraining, and starting on the amateur progression would be ideal. He already has a certain level of adaptation that's kind of ingrained in his central nervous system, you know? So would he be the same as the 21-year-old kid who's never really lifted weights? He's only ran and done whatever he's done in PE class.
Right.
I don't think so, but
No.
you know, who's to say? Again, assuming all the other variables are within a certain threshold of each other.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we could armchair it all day long, right? But the data is where the data are. So.
Yeah. But
Cool. Well, gentlemen, that puts us over an hour.
well,
All right.
yeah, I got to think of his name. He got his wish. Him and like
Yeah.
the other 45 people around the world who listen to this. You know, once we get triple digits, it's gonna, you know, we're gonna celebrate. You know, we'll do that show. Were we talking on the air or off the air about maybe having a cocktail or two during one of these and just see where it takes us? You know, probably
Yeah.
5 hours.
That's the one we'll have to video record.
That one would be video.
We could play virtual beer pong.
Oh, I love it.
You guys do? You play any fantasy football?
I do. I'm in a league back home with a few guys in Chicago, and then we have a league in our gym at Balboa.
Man,
Did you do
I'll
your
tell you
draft already? My draft is this weekend for the big one.
Next week, I got next Thursday, next Sunday, I think, and I'm totally unprepared.
Yeah.
So I got to get some.
You know
I got to
what,
get
dude,
some
it's just-
magazines.
It's the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. The same players that were kicking ass at the end of the season last year, they're going to dominate.
Dude,
They're
it's
going to dominate. You know, I think last year I had the bookends. So I had the 10th and the 11th pick, and it was Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. Dude, people are like, what? You know, they still want to take running backs, and I get that. But it's a passing league, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And we went all the way to the championships, and we didn't make it because his running back, the team was like stacked. You know, Ray Rice, the guy who's the Bears wide receiver who, you know, okay, I'm drawing a blank right now, but he was like really hot towards the end.
Brandon Marshall.
And you know, Gronkowski for us got hurt. As soon as he went down, we didn't really have a reliable backup. But you know, I tell you, this year I got the 8th pick, and it's like if there's a good quarterback, I'm taking it. You know, I'll get some running back in the second rounds or whatever, but.
So I've never played a fantasy sport ever.
No? Oh,
Nope.
shit, dude.
No, I'm not even sure how it works, to be quite honest. I usually make fun of people who play fantasy sports. I think it's kind of like the Dungeon Dragons of sports.
Right? I am the
You
wizard.
guys like get around and like wear like capes and have like little characters and like cast spells on each other.
Yeah.
Right.
It's, I'm no good at it.
Dice.
I'm no good at it, man. But I'll tell you what, it does make you know, if you have time to sit down and watch some football, if your team isn't playing, it does make watching other games a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I have heard that. And
Now-
is it pretty self-sufficient? Like, I mean, once you sign up and pick your team, is it like it's pretty self-sufficient, right? Like, you know where you stand at the end of the weekend or I guess Tuesday morning.
Dude, it's
you set your lineup and then they play. You can't.
I guess what I'm asking is like, is there a web page?
well, yeah, dude. It's you start your own league. And there's apps, there's stat trackers, it's real time. I mean, it's all on your mobile phone. It could be on anything. It's like, dude, it is an amazing industry that's been created. And I was kind of with you, Steve, in the sense that I'm like, what are what are you guys doing? This is stupid. And you know, if you're passionate about a certain sport, it gets you even deeper, you know, in the sense of you get to manage this team, you monitor the league, you fish for trades, you strategize week by week on how you're going to beat this guy, you know, and how you can trade with this guy. And I'll tell you, it's real shitty if your job forces you to work and travel all day Sunday, it's really not that fun. It's more of it's my third full-time job is what it turns into. You know, I don't even have a DVR, so I can't DVR the games. Like so it's turned into a challenge ever since that's become a requirement for me.
Nice. Well, maybe I'll check it out this year.
Think about the players too, you know. I mean, are we going to see a day when these players are sitting down, like negotiating their contracts? Fantasy football stats are going to be like added into the language, you know. If you get said 100-yard game, well, it probably already is, isn't it? It's just not in that like content as far as fantasy football, but they probably do get some kind of bonus incentive for, you know, offensive, defensive player of the year, so many touchdowns, right?
Yeah, all that stuff's in there
for sure.
But
I guess I was thinking more of like when would fantasy football really like dictate player contract structuring? You know, when are you going to hear the guy after the game get on the podium and be like, "Hey, to all those people who drafted me, I'm sorry I didn't get my 100-yard game." You know, I mean, is it going to get to that point? Hopefully not.
I hope not either. But it's possible. There's a lot of people.
It's a huge thing. I mean, they have shows on it and everything now, and like Sports Center, and you know, we'll see. I mean, thank God they brought it to golf. I don't know what I'd do if they didn't have fantasy golf or fantasy NASCAR.
Hey guys, I gotta get some work done. Okay.
All right. Yeah, for sure. We're way past time, but it's all right. It's all good.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I'll check out fantasy football leagues.
Cool. All right, guys.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks again.